The sun rises and the heartbeat of the world begins. Where does today take you? What new journey begins? Take a leap and live the impossible dream. Create your own new story from your soul.
I am a creative entrepreneur and brand strategist and online retail shop owner, I guess. I help clients figure out the best way to present their messaging and the best way to connect with their audiences. Here in DC for about 8.5 years now, and prior to that I was a fashion designer in the city, in New York. I grew up in Washington, DC, but also in Pittsburgh. My parents had an amicable divorce. So spent weekdays, Monday through Friday, in Pittsburgh, and then weekends, summers, and holidays here in DC. It's just what I knew. That was just life. I didn't realize until I got much older that people didn't get on planes every weekend. So I thought that everyone got on an airplane every weekend. Honestly, I think they did the best that they could. You know, challenges along the way for sure, but they both were very resourceful and were surrounded by their village. My aunts are definitely also the women who have raised me, as well as my uncles, and my siblings are my best friends, my first friends. And I think we just had a very great community around us, helping my parents figure out how best to do it. Yeah, it's never easy. I don't know when I didn't know that being creative wasn't my passion. My first love was coloring. Absolutely always loved to color as a young girl. And I specifically remember when I fell in love with fashion, my mom, I used to have a lot of hair, and my mom she would do my hair in shifts. So I would lay on one side for an hour or 2 hours, and she would put me on the other side for an hour or 2 hours, and we would either watch like a basketball game or something, and I loved great movies. And I will never forget, I think I almost got myself burnt actually, because I popped up, I saw Audrey Hepburn cascading down these steps, and I just wanted to know who she was, what she was wearing. You know, I just was immediately enamored with her, and that was the moment I fell in love with fashion, for sure. No, I wouldn't call myself a muse, but I have several muses myself. Audrey Hepburn is my first. Always and forever. Dorothy Dandridge, for sure. My grandmothers. Whew. My grandmothers are women who just made it happen. They were dreamers and doers and change makers, very loving and nurturing. My grandmother, Mary Gray, called her Lulu, my Lulu. She just passed away a few weeks ago. She's from from Louisiana, a suburb of New Orleans, and moved up to Pittsburgh and just was very much in love with healthy living and self-care at a very early time, I guess, in the 60s and 70s, and she turned it into her entrepreneurial passion. She had a TV show in Pittsburgh and helped professional sports players better understand how to take care of their bodies and exercise. And my grandmother, my grandma Carrie, she's a force. She just turned 90 a couple of weeks ago, but she has always been the voice in my head that I hear sometimes before I even hear my own voice, or the voice that I probably hear not even knowing that it is my own voice, because it's always echoing her. She has been just such a stronghold in our family, and she owned lots of property in the 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, and 70s in Syracuse, New York, and ran businesses. She just was also an entrepreneur. I think my family has always, it's always God first, then family, and it's, you want to be of service to your people and provide a service to your people, and figure out a way to do both of those in a way that makes you happy, and also in a way that can be beneficial to others. I think when I first got to Villanova, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I was kind of moving towards a career in communications. I remember arguing with my dad. He's like, you talk all day. You don't need to get a degree in talking. You know how to talk. I'm not paying all this money for you to get a degree in talking. And I also knew I wanted to do something in fashion. I thought maybe I was going to be an attorney. I, really considered, he has the law firm, so I really considered going to law school and trying to buy out his law firm to use it to purchase my first and create my first fashion house. Once he found out that plan, that all foiled. But I think when I was at Villanova, I just wanted to have a good time. I had a very I had a lot of responsibility as a kid. And when I went to school, I really just wanted to have a good time, to learn, to meet people, to build my own little community. But I also wanted to have some fun. And so when I was at Villanova, I very much did that. Lots of community service, but just also like time. I think that was very much like my dreaming time. I had been traveling to Italy quite a bit, and horrible with directions. I got lost. This is a very true story. I got lost in the Duomo, shopping and eating, because that was my life then, and just sort of exploring museums and trying to experience the culture and just really enjoying my time. And I got lost, and I looked up, and I saw a placard in this, a little bit off the Duomo that said Istituto Merengoni, fashion design. It's like, let's see what this is about. I already had a clothing line. This is my first business, Dionna Marie. And I just was interested in seeing like what this was. I went upstairs, took a quick tour, spoke with several people, got my application, moved back, came back home, filled out the application, got approved, and realized I needed to come up with a lot of money to get there very quickly. I mentioned it to my family, and they were like, absolutely not. This is not happening. You just graduated from Villanova. No, we're not. No. You're either going to law school, right? You're either going to go to law school or you're going to do some service for a year, but no. And I made a PowerPoint for my dad to argue my point for the reasons why I should go into fashion, explaining to him from a very financial-based perspective of how much money I could make. Like, if this will be your ROI. This will be your return of your investment if you invest in me now to get this done. And he saw some of the numbers. I used some Jay-Z songs in there, and it worked. Next thing I knew, I moved to, I had like a little, we had like a little going away party, helped my family with some things. We had a quick little going away party. Next thing I knew, I was on an airplane, and then was in design school in Milan. So Villanova was very much my dreaming time. Milan was my meeting myself time. But I didn't realize that until my very last day of school, actually. So, you have a very tight course load, and lots of work to do, lots of culture to take in, lots of people to meet. I really enjoyed my time, but I didn't have a lot of time to do anything but get the work done. And it wasn't until my final exam, I had to do my presentation, and once I presented and received my score, I actually had like a moment to breathe. And so on my way back home, for the first time, I actually looked up and I said, oh my God, tears down my eyes. I'm actually in Italy. I'm in Milan. I just attended fashion design school. I just graduated top of my class, tied with 2 other students. And holy cow, like I actually, I did this. I think One of the things I'm still trying to do better with is to learn to take a pause and to celebrate the small victories, and I'm always thankful and grateful, but I also keep it moving. You know, one of my dad's favorite sayings is, now get back to work. So I'm used to now getting back to work. But that was one of the times when I was actually like, whoa, I did this, you know, with the grace of God, but, you know, I did this. I'm here, I graduated, and I think that was really one of the first times that I met myself in Milan. My younger sister, became a little ill, and it took me a full 24 hours to get back to her from Milan back to DC, or back to Philly actually. I realized that my life in Europe probably wasn't going to happen in that moment, at least. And so the next best thing was to go to New York. So that's what brought me to New York, and time of my life. What didn't I do? Lots of dancing, lots of work. Just really like started to create my village, my young adult village for sure, and lots of relationship building, but a lot of dancing. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. I enjoyed myself for myself and for you in my 20s in New York City. I call that my former life. I mean, I was a fashion designer working for a very big licensing company in New York, and I made it through 17 rounds of layoffs. And I finally got the email while I was on a beach in the Dominican Republic saying that they needed me to come back and have a meeting, when they really just could have laid me off from email. Like, I'm on the beach, you know, I'm on holiday. Just lay me off now, give me my severance, and I can, you know, enjoy the rest of my time here. Get back to New York City, I have this meeting. They let us know that our specific team is going to be laid off. And I was okay with it. I didn't quite know what was next, but I was grateful I knew I wanted a change and I needed a change, but I just didn't know what that change looked like. I stayed on freelancing as a designer in New York City for one more year. And then I woke up one day and I just said, it's time to go home. And I was blessed to have a home to come home to. And so I came back to Washington, D.C. When I came to D.C., I could not get hired. Could not get a job to save my life. And then the opportunities that did come my way, you know, I was very blessed with my career in New York City, and did a great job optimizing my time while I was there, and so I wasn't interested in coming to DC. I'm okay with, you know, potentially like taking a step backwards, but I wasn't very comfortable standing still. And I wasn't comfortable taking several steps backwards. So no one would hire me at the rate that I wanted, so I had to hire myself. And that's sort of what started the entrepreneurial passion V2, version 2 in DC. This is so funny. I was on Craigslist looking. One of the things that everyone kept telling me was that I had this beautiful branding portfolio, but that, you know, at the time in Washington, D.C., we weren't yet creative here, or weren't yet as open and as accepting of creatives here. And so everyone wanted to see a non-creative based portfolio for branding. It's the time, right? And so I went on Craigslist and I happened to see an organization called Dreaming Out Loud, run by the executive director, Christopher Bradshaw, who's now still a client and best friend and like a brother to me, very much like family. And he needed some branding help, and he wasn't paying, but he was offering internships to folks. And so I said, oh, well, this will be a great way for me to grow my network here in DC and to help someone out doing something that's really cool that I believe in. And then also to just sort of breathe and kind of figure things out. So Christopher and I started working. I think people really saw the work that we were doing and the way that we worked together and the differences and the changes that we were making both in the community as well as with his organization from a branding perspective. And I think we were in the very first co-sharing space in DC called the Affinity Lab. And next thing I knew, I had clients. I kind of came home one day and I said, okay, I have a company. I need a name, I need a logo, I need an attorney, I need an accountant, I got to figure all this stuff out. And that's how Dionna Dorsey Design came to be. I always tell people to just keep going. You have to keep moving forward. So District of Clothing came from a moment when things were sort of breaking down with Dionna Dorsey Design. I had a prime client, was being paid very well. I had several other clients and I was busy. I was booked, as they say. And then things had started to slow down, as they often do. And my prime went on a spending freeze and my account started looking different. And at that time, I knew I needed to bring in some passive income, which I was already sort of thinking about and focusing on, but I knew at some point I needed to bring in additional income and to help out with the slower months. And, I considered lots of different things, but it only made sense for me to do something that I was passionate about, something that I was well-informed and educated in. And so that was fashion design. And I was really inspired by my network here in Washington, D.C. specifically, of people who, you meet them for brunch or lunch or dinner one day and they have this idea, and then the next time you see them, they're already moving on this idea. And I was constantly surrounded by my network of dreamers and doers. And I remember going to sleep and waking up in the middle of the night, and I just had this idea. I saw it very clearly. Dreamer, doer, dreamer, doer, dreamer, doer. And life happened, so I had to table it until October 2014. I couldn't get it out of my head, and I couldn't fall asleep one night. So I spent the night, creating, developing, and planning District of Clothing. And she launched Thanksgiving morning, about 5 a.m. that morning. And here we are today. Blessed. I am incredibly blessed and moved anytime I think of it. Moved, very emotional even in this moment. I don't know if I still recognize what he has in store for me, but I recognize him. And so if I keep my focus there and being obedient and doing my best to be of service to people, I don't always like it, but I trust it. And I trust him, and try to keep smiling. I hope that my work is an inspiration to people, to remind them that things are never going to be perfect, but you have to keep going. And I'm a firm believer that when your passion meets your purpose, you're unstoppable. And sometimes it takes some time to figure that out. I've lived many different lives. I'm 38 years old, and I make mistakes every single day. But I'm happy to make those mistakes because I learned through them. I believe in failing fast and failing forward, and I believe in being open and vulnerable with people through that. And I hope that my vulnerability, which I'm still trying to grow and develop, can be inspiring to people, to let them know that you can, whomever you are, you have everything within you to do whatever it is that you're supposed to do. And our gifts and talents they were given to us, we're responsible for them, but they're not ours. I believe that we were given specific gifts and talents because it's known that we can disseminate those to the universe and help other people and help other things. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this world. And it's important that we are, aligned well, spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, so that we can get that work done.